Does the sound of the void dragging your enemies into infinite darkness give you shivers down your spine? Do the shrieks of demons being obliterated into necrotic explosions of death and despair bring joy to the emptiness in your soul? Do you only have 100 chaos? Well, do I ever have the build for you? So, for anyone that came here after seeing my Burning Arrow video, you know that I was planning on League starting it because it was cheap and scaled nicely. Well, we all know how that went in Ultimatum. So I kind of went to the drawing board 7 different times, played 7 builds in 7 days, and decided to go back to old trusty, some version of a Chaos Occultist. Looked around a little bit on PoE Ninja, looked at what people were doing, and kind of picked and chose what looked good to me, and then put my own spin on it with some ideas that that kind of jumped out to me. And yeah, it's been an absolute joy to play this character. Chaos skills are in a pretty decent place. They're still in like the same situation where they start off very strong, they scale very nicely into like early to mid red maps, and then they kind of taper off. And even with perfect investment, the end game stuff is kind of going to drop off a little bit. With that said, we can take down Awakener 8. I would say that's a little uncomfortable. Awakener 5 is very smooth actually. And for just 2 or 3 exalts, we're taking down Awakener 5, and we absolutely dominate Ultimatum. And I think that this is the defining characteristic of why this build is so great for a League starter in any league where you can, where you have to run around in a circle and just kill waves and waves of monsters. With the Explodey chest being nerfed or harder to get, see my last video for my opinions on it. I still think it is a good choice, and I think people are sleeping on it. But with the built-in Profane Bloom, and especially the things that we get from Touch of Cruelty, Misery Everlasting, and Divergent Bane, along with Profane Bloom, we can actually push our explosion chance up to 70% or higher. And that gives us pretty close to the feel of the old Explodey, which is pretty wild. And I love the playstyle with Bane, and I think like the kind of fun twist that I put on this was really building around Void Sphere and seeing what I could do with that. And for almost no investment, we got going and had a successful first week of our league. So yeah, the basic idea behind this build is how can we just get a character that is up and running for as little investment as possible at the beginning of a league, and then how do we modify that build a little bit so it feels really good in the league mechanic and for how far we have to push it until we transition over to a big end game build. And this build absolutely just took the cake for what I was looking for there. So the basic idea, this is kind of a set known template that's been around for a while, but I think the unique thing here is the Void Sphere, and I didn't even do anything crazy with it. I'm using it, and I think it's something that is almost best in slot for Ultimatums this league, if you have at least like 1 extra gem. So what we're doing here is we're just using a Cane of Unraveling. I bought this for 35 chaos, already 6 linked. That's how crazy it is. And it was just like 3 or 4 days into the league. 35 chaos, 6 link Cane of the Unraveling. It is almost impossible to beat this weapon for best in slot damage. You can beat it with 2 ridiculous wands, but it's really, really hard to get there. And even if you do get that, you're not really going to get too much bang for your buck for the investment. This helmet, I bought it for 30C with the enchantment. Everyone, Crown of the Inward Eye, you can start off with a rare helmet. Very, very easy. Body armor, I bought this for, I think, 20 chaos. I 6 linked it, but I didn't even get the right colors. And we're just on a 5 link right now for our Essence Drain. Amulet was, I think it was like a 10C base. I threw a few Aberrant Fossils at it, so maybe 20 chaos total, just to get the +1 level of chaos spell skill gems. These rings are just, I threw some elks at it until I got good life. There's absolutely nothing on these rings. These gloves are the new Apothecary's gloves. They give you the increased damage over time implicit. Nothing else on it. I just threw some elks until I hit some nice life. Same thing with the belt, life and res. Just corrupted blood, cheap jewel, and move speed boots. And that is it for the gear. I just want to get that out of the way. Like the total investment here, like absolute max, including the cluster jewels. The cluster jewels are the most expensive part by itself. We're looking at 3 exalts total. This is an actual budget build. There is no reason you can't get this started at the beginning of the league. And Cane of the Unraveling, like day 2, not 6 linked, you're gonna get it for like 5 chaos. And day 4, it's already 6 linked for 30 chaos. So yeah, this is a budget build, 100%. So the way the build works is we are using Bane, which is it's one of my favorite skills in the game. When you cast it, it does a little AoE. It does not hit. It applies all of the linked curses to the monsters that you're hitting, and it also has a more damage multiplier when for the number of curses applied. Now, the way that this more damage multiplier works is it's just a single more multiplier that grows based on the number of curses. So it's not like it's like 50% plus 50%, or 50% times 50%. It's 50% or 100% or 150%. So you're not getting that, you're not getting like, because your first instinct is like, oh, can I just link 5 curses to this and get max damage? Unfortunately not. Honestly, the perfect damage for it is just 1 curse linked, and everything else is another damage gem. But I really like to use this for applying 2 different curses at once. Not as much damage as we could get, but the quality of life for getting Despair and Tempt Chains on every monster just really makes it much more comfortable while you're mapping, and especially in Ultimatums, which is what I tweaked this build to play. So it's Bane with Tempt Chains, Despair, and then Swift Affliction, Efficacy, and Controlled Destruction. If you want, you could drop Tempt Chains or Despair and put in Void Manipulation and get your curse somewhere else. That's totally valid. You could get an curse on hit ring, which then you would curse with your Void Sphere, which hits every time it pulses. So you could push your damage that way. Alternatively, in the helmet, Vitality, Flesh and Stone, Malevolence I have a level 2 Enlighten. Like this is like bottom of the barrel stuff. Because I corrupted a level 3 and I failed. And we still have plenty of mana to work with here. So because of Vitality and Flesh and Stone, we are, and we have almost 6k effective life here. We are like moderately tanky for just an Occultist that's running around on 3 Exalted gear. Going up to T16 maps, you'll die a little bit. We're not juggernauts with 8k life and 10 endurance charges, but for an Occultist, this is like a very, very comfortable amount of defense. So what I'm doing to boost my DPS and actually survivability a little bit, because Essence Drain leeches life for you, is or it regenerates life from the debuff. It does not leech. So we have Essence Drain with Controlled Destruction, Void Manip, Empower, and Efficacy. The 6th link would be Swift Affliction. But with this chest, like I just bought this chest for 20C. I just searched for like max life and increased max life. Bought the first thing I could get. I got lucky on the 6th link, but I can't even use the 6th link anyway. We're just on a 5 link here. And it just gives us a bonus extra damage. So Bane is doing, it says 91k. It's not taking into account all of the debuffs and everything. And then Essence Drain says 250k. When I had perfect everything gear, I think Essence Drain was saying 450k, but this I put on like my average normal budget gear here. And this is enough damage to take down T16 Guardians. It's a little on the slow side, but because of Tempt Chains, Flesh and Stone, Vitality, Essence Drain regenerating more life for us, the monster is super slow. We're just very comfortable. We don't have to worry about dying or getting hit or anything. Just Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, Second Wind right here. And the cool fun thing here that, tried to show off a little bit at the beginning, is we have Void Sphere with Culling Strike support, and we don't even need Culling Strike specifically. On a Cluster Jewel, we can get Wish for Death, which also gives us Culling Strike on our for hits against cursed enemies. So I'm using Culling Strike here, but you can also get it on a Cluster Jewel with Second Wind and Void Sphere. And this means that every, like, look how fast the cooldown is. It lasts 7.5 seconds with an 8-second cooldown, but we have 2 charges. That means we have almost 100% uptime as we're running around in a circle during Ultimatum. And then we have Wither here for just like getting more Wither stacks. Because of Withering Presence, we can actually get Wither. The longer we're standing next to a boss, we're putting the Wither on them anyway. This is a way that we can kind of just boost it a little bit. We don't need much. So, like, you know, you imagine you're standing next to a boss for 5 seconds and you get 5 seconds of casting, max Wither stacks, you're good. I really don't like using up four gem slots for Wither totems. Like, you know, Sirus is going to one-shot your Wither totems constantly. We have Withering Presence, you know, just get a little extra couple stacks on it. We're just like, we get our dots on there, we do a couple Withers, we're at max damage, and we just run in a circle safely. Like, I don't like worrying about dropping totems. I think it's, on an Occultist, I think it is a waste of 4 gem slots. And then, so Flasks are just like purely defensive, basically. There is nothing crazy or special here. I'm using a Rumi's, a Adziri's Promise, a Quartz just so I can run faster and run through monsters, a Life Flask, and a Quicksilver, and that's it. In terms of one other gear upgrade that we can do here is I crafted this for 3 exalts, I think, max. Like, basically the price was just, I bought 2 bases and the Awakener's Orb, and I made a +1 level of socketed support gems and active skill gems. We put this in here, and our Essence Drain goes up to level 29. And actually, if we get +1 more level somewhere else, we can get level 30 Essence Drain for basically maxing our damage out. All right, so the passive tree is pretty simple. Starting off with the Ascendancy, we will first get Void Beacon. It just gives us 20% more damage effectively, and honestly, against Maven mobs, it's just, we don't have to worry about life regen on monsters against Maven. We don't have to worry about dropping a Frost Bomb or anything. It's pretty awesome. Counters the regen that she gives them. Then we will go to Withering Presence. Just gives us more damage over time, gives us more Chaos Res. Things are much safer. After that, I would go for Profane Bloom. Just makes things nicer. You pop enemies. We don't have to worry about hexproof on our maps or anything. And then finally, I would take Malediction. We don't need to be double cursing early on. Double cursing is just like a nice little bonus later on. So that's the order I would take my Ascendancy nodes. All right, so as we're putting the build together, the order that I would get my skill points is just go for life here. The nice thing about leveling with chaos, if that's the direction that you choose to go, if you want to know how to do that, just search on YouTube, chaos witch leveling, and there will be some really good guides out there. I'll look for one and link it below. But the way that chaos works, and like the reason why we're going for +1 gems in our gear here all over the place, is it primarily scales a lot on the level of the gem. And like the downside is there's a cap on the level of a gem. It doesn't go over a certain amount. So, and it's really hard after a certain point to get more levels. So you basically have a ceiling on the damage that you can get. But the nice thing is, as your gems level up, your damage just jumps forward every single gem level. Because of that, we don't really worry about scaling our damage too much as we're leveling. It just like kind of happens naturally. So, just kind of take a holistic approach to where you're putting your points into your, in your tree as you're leveling. I would, obviously don't go for the cluster jewel areas right away. These are not the best place to go. You're just going to want to go for growth and decay. You're going to want to go up to atrophy, and then you'll want to go down to method to the madness. You grab those things, that's going to give you damage, hit the life nodes along the way. Written in Blood, Blood Drinker, and Revenge of the Hunted. This will give you plenty of life for leveling. You'll have plenty of damage, and then when you get to maps level 60 to 70, then go for the cluster jewel slots and start putting in cluster jewels. it's pretty self-explanatory. This is just chaos damage over time nodes. These are just, these are just life nodes. There's really nothing crazy about the tree. Get chaos damage over time multipliers in your little jewel sockets. One big thing here, cannot be hindered, is incredible for Ultimatum. Definitely have a look out for jewels that have cannot be hindered as implicits. It makes a big difference for the hindering effect in ultimatums. And that's it. There's nothing crazy here. For cluster jewels, it doesn't really matter. You can kind of mix and match, and you can kind of pick the flavor that you want here. So what I went for is Wicked Paul is always a really nice thing. Gives you a little bit of skill effect duration, so your DP, your damage over time lasts a little bit longer, and some more chaos damage. I like to get one Unwavering Evil on one of your cluster jewel slots, because now when you're casting, you don't have to worry about getting stunned. We're not stun immune, but at least we'll get our Essence Drain, our Bane off, which will be the big difference, or even our Void Sphere. And then for the medium cluster jewel slots, like I said, it's just a mix and match. Pick it for the flavor that you want. So for example, I took Eldritch Inspiration. It honestly, just having that extra bit of mana is really nice. Chaos damage over time multiplier is good damage. Brood for Potency, I just have one of these. Now I have a lot more recovery from my Flasks, and I get more Flask charges. I don't have to worry about it as much for a longer boss fight that may have ads in it. I really like having one Evil Eye, because this gives this kind of almost stacks with Flesh and Stone, and this way, the take increased damage, obviously incredible, but also getting extra blind is just another defensive layer. Then on top of that, I have a Misery Everlasting. Misery Everlasting is going to be one of your highest damage boosts, actually, because Despair just stacks with everything for your damage. And then that 10% increased skill effect duration is a ton for especially making your Bane last longer. Bane kind of has a short duration. For my small cluster jewels, I just have 2 Surging Vitalities. I think this is a lot of people go for Fettle, and Fettle will just give you a lot more flat life. I don't worry about getting one shot as much, and you'll find this in my builds. I don't really worry about getting one shot as much as most people. Building against a one shot is really hard. I really like, as a witch especially, we're almost never gonna be outside of randomly one shot territory. It's just the way the game works. However, I really like being able to counteract any degens, ignites, whatever may hit us. And Surging Vitality is incredible. I have 2 Surging Vitalities here, which gives me 1% increased life regen, and every 4 seconds I'll actually regenerate 20% of my life over 1 second. And that, the number of times when I've been really low and then my life just jumps up like a gigantic point out of nowhere is it's pretty awesome. And then the other cluster jewel slot, I have Unspeakable Gifts. So this is what I mentioned in the intro. I think I used the wrong name. I'll make sure I'll put Unspeakable Gifts on the screen when I talk about it. So the way that Explodey works now is they made, I think, all sources of Explode except for maybe the Shaper Mace mod are % chance now. They took out most of the 100% Explode mods. So we'll see here that Profane Bloom is 40% of the time a monster that we have cursed will explode, dealing a quarter of their life as chaos damage when we kill it. 40% of the time is pretty good, but it's not, sometimes we'll hit a whole pack and we won't get a single explosion. And, against a pack of porcupines, that might be enough to get us killed. So we can stack Unspeakable Gifts. I actually used to have 2 of them. We can stack it twice and actually go up to 60%. Divergent Bane actually gives you another 10%, and then we can be at, if you really want to, you can be at 70% chance to explode. Dealing a quarter of their life as maximum life, and we're scaling our chaos damage enough that you're just popping basically a full screen a lot of the time with that. So that's a thing to look out for. Other than that, Touch of Cruelty. I have this once. I used to have it twice. So this is kind of a defining characteristic, I think, of the build and why I think it's so good for Ultimatum is Void Sphere is a chaos skill, and it pulses. So it lasts we have it lasting like 8 seconds. It will pulse every 0.4 seconds. So it's pulsing what, like 16 plus times, and every single pulse has a 10% chance to hinder the enemies, which make, you know, they go 30% slower, and they take 10% increased chaos damage. Combine that with temp chains, and we're running circles in ultimatums, and the monsters can't even get to us. Even frenzy monsters, we don't have to worry about them. It just makes boss fighting so much easier. We don't have to worry about our low DPS as much. Ultimatums, we rarely even get touched. The monsters are barely moving. I think it's incredible, and the whole time Void Sphere is pulling them into the middle. And then this one I have, and another Unwavering Evil, doesn't stack, obviously, but it's increased damage, and another Wicked Paw. And that's everything that I have in the passive. No, like, yeah, I have this jewel that does, you know, very little. It's just very, very simple stuff. Like, this is 3 exalts of gear, not a single penny more. So that's this is the whole loadout of the build here. An additional thing is I have tried a whole bunch of different Helm enchantments, and this is actually my favorite of all of them. I tried Bane, Essence Drain increased damage. I tried Bane increased damage. 40% increased damage is nice, but honestly, for just a comfortable map experience, I found that the 24% increased AoE on Bane was enough to just, and Bane just gets gigantic, and you're hitting almost the entire screen with it. So that's what I would recommend for a Helm Enchant. Unless, like, if you're going to stick with this build for an entire league, you're going to want to go for probably Essence Drain damage, just to try to make your bossing damage a little bit higher. But, you know, this is my league starter. I want more AoE. I want better map clear. This is what I went with. An alternative option for the gloves, and this is actually what I used to have until I put my Bane in my Essence Drain in a 5-link here, was I used an Essence of Delirium, which costs about 30 chaos right now, and on gloves it says socketed gems deal 30% more damage over time. So you can actually take a 4-linked glove and basically give it a 5th link by adding another 30% more damage over time multiplier. I was actually doing this until I had this chest. So this is an alternative that you can do, and yeah, and especially on the new Apothecary's gloves, you're getting really, really nice damage just on your glove slot. That way, you only go for 1 6-link. Like, if you have a Tabula, you can just use a Tabula. You don't even need a 6-link Cane of Unraveling as you get started, which is what I did. All right, so there wasn't a ton to talk about here. It's not a very complicated build. The other nice thing about Chaos Gems is we are just generically scaling Chaos damage over time, and you know, Chaos damage, and any damage over time multiplier and duration as much as we want. So, like, this is really a template that you can mix and match whatever you want. I really like Bane as my standard mapping skill for just being able to apply curses very safely and getting really good coverage on the screen. ED Contagion still works, but I really tried it. Contagion, the lower AoE is really, really noticeable, and even with Awakened AoE, it felt pretty bad. I just don't recommend Contagion anymore. Bane will get the job done. You don't need Contagion. But if you like it, go for it. Also, I tried Soul Rend. I put GMP in with Soul Rend. It did great damage, actually. The Soul Rend was doing 300k DPS just with dropping it into my my 6-link. And if you really like that, you can just take this build, put in Soul Rend, maybe go for a little cast speed and cat speed, and you're good to go there. So really, like, it's just, that's the cool thing about Chaos skills on Occultist, is they're just mix and match. Pick what you really like to do, use it. It's a great league starter. Like, literally, this is 3 exalts for killing Awakener 5. You know, just like 300 chaos, right? And if you're getting 15 chaos a map right now in Ultimatum, there's no reason why you can't do this. I really, really recommend it. I sold a couple of my more expensive items, and I'm already working on my next build, but I'm actually planning on keeping this build put together for very nice, like, when I'm in the mood for just doing T12, T14 Ultimatum maps and just blasting maps. This might be the build that I stick with for the rest of the league. I really think even in the future, I may always have this build as my go-to, unless they dramatically change things. I think I can't recommend something like this enough. So I hope you guys give it a shot. Thanks for thanks for checking out this this build guide and this video. Thanks for coming back. You know, if you have any questions about the build, you can always find me on Twitch. I'm always happy to ask questions, and streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So yeah, see you guys in the future.